first thing the man said when he stepped onto my porch was hand over the pool keys, not as a request but as an order delivered with the stiff posture of someone who enjoyed being obeyed. Behind him stood Karen, arms crossed, smirking like she just deployed her personal military unit. I looked at the badge pinned to his chest, then back at her and said, "You really sent your husband for this?" She did not blink. "You ignored 3 notices," she said, sharp as a paper cut. "The pool belongs to the community." He tightened his jaw, proud to be her muscle. "Keys," he repeated as if the word alone carried authority. I kept my voice calm. "It's on my property." Karen stepped closer, voice slicing through the heat. "Don't play dumb, cooperate or we escalate." But beneath my silence, I smiled because she had no idea she had just walked into my investigation without realizing the trap had been set weeks earlier. When the cruiser finally pulled away and the red-blue reflection faded across the water, I stood still, feeling the weight of the moment sink into my bones. It's not every day your neighbor sends a badge-wearing husband to intimidate you into surrendering something your father built with his bare hands. My name is Cole. I moved back here last spring after my father passed. The house had been in our family since the 70s, long before the HOA planted its roots and started dictating the shade of every fence and the height of every blade of grass. My dad built everything on this land: the cedar porch, the stone pool, the paths carved from years of sweat and stubborn grit. I returned to restore what he created, not to be dragged into a petty power struggle. But Karen Langford, self-appointed queen of property values, wasn't interested in restoration or tradition. She was interested in power, hers. The first notice appeared 2 days after the welcome meeting. Unapproved structure detected, pool requires inspection. My dad's pool, the same one she called a liability. I ignored it. Then came the fines, then the letters, then the sudden appearance of her husband's cruiser parked at angles that suggested surveillance, not coincidence. That's when I began documenting everything: photos, dates, letters, even the way wind moved the notices she taped to my gate. My dad taught me how to build things. My career taught me how to document things. And one thing bureaucracy fears the most is documented truth. The invasion escalated. Drones hovered like metallic insects over my water. HOA volunteers lingered near my fence with telephoto lenses, pretending to walk their dogs. Anonymous complaints arrived accusing me of excessive splashing, loud gatherings, and even operating a commercial pool. Lies, all of them, but every lie created paperwork. And every piece of paperwork was delivered personally by Officer Langford, always in uniform, even off duty. That uniform wasn't enforcement, it was intimidation. One night I noticed his cruiser parked so close to my driveway the headlights lit my mailbox. I walked outside, beer in hand, and stared at him until the clock struck midnight. He didn't move. Neither did I. The message was clear: he wanted me to feel watched. But I wanted him to know I couldn't be scared off property my father built stone by stone. Then came the financial reports. While flipping through the HOA ledger one late night, I found a string of pool maintenance expenses with no contractor names, no invoices, just vague entries approved by none other than Officer Langford. The community pool hadn't been serviced in months, yet money poured out of the account. Neighbors quietly told me that their pool access cards had been disabled and that Karen required cash payments for replacements. No receipts, no records, just cash into her pocket. That's when the picture sharpened. She skimmed money, he signed off, and my pool, private, spring-fed, older than the HOA itself, was her leverage to drive me out before I uncovered more. So I added more cameras, more sensors, more logs. Drones were filmed. Late-night cruiser visits timestamp. Letters scanned. Voices recorded. I was not reacting anymore, I was preparing. But bullies don't like being ignored. The next HOA meeting was crowded. Karen stood at the front with her polished smile and thick binder, speaking like she was running a political campaign. "Our officers have the right to enforce community rules at any time," she said, staring directly at me. The word officers echoed louder than the rest. Her husband stood at the back, arms folded, uniform crisp, authority dripping from every stitch. The intimidation wasn't subtle. After the meeting, she walked past me wearing that real estate smile. "You should consider selling," she whispered. "These situations tend to become exhausting." I could have walked away. I even looked at listings one night, imagining an easier life somewhere else. But then I stepped outside, saw the pool light shimmering across the stone my father laid with his own hands, and his old words echoed in my mind: "You only lose what you hand over." I wasn't handing anything over. Days later, I found a cease and desist notice taped to my front door accusing me of using unauthorized community water features. She tried to claim my private pool as HOA property. The signature at the bottom wasn't hers, it was her husband's, under a made-up title that had no legal standing. I called the county clerk. They confirmed no official complaint had been filed, meaning the letter wasn't legal. It was a bluff wearing a badge. The kind of bluff that destroys the careers of people who think uniforms are weapons rather than responsibilities. That night I reorganized every file, digital and physical, into a master folder labeled HOA fraud evidence. Photos, videos, ledgers, timelines, every piece of the puzzle finally aligned. But I still needed one thing: proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof that my pool was not and had never been under HOA jurisdiction. So the next morning before dawn, I drove to the county records office. I requested historic plats, water rights documents, and environmental filings. The clerk brought out a dusty binder thick with maps older than me. Near the bottom of one page, written in faded ink, I found it. The spring feeding my pool was part of a federal watershed easement, protected, untouchable, outside the HOA boundary, outside Karen's reach. My father had filed it decades ago to protect the land from exactly this kind of takeover. She never owned my water, she never owned my pool, she never owned 1 inch of what she tried to claim. Everything she had done, every drone, every fine, every letter signed by her husband, was now evidence of harassment, fraud, and abuse of authority. I closed the binder slowly, feeling the weight of victory in the echo of my father's words. Builders win in the long run. She wanted a war of paperwork. Now she was about to meet the federal version,